Wonderful guest from United States of America, McClain Warren. Hi, McClain.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Wow, I made it.
You did good. I'll give you 5 stars on that one.
Very, very important, and I want to discuss this topic with McClain.
Pay attention to what's happening with your product quality control. It's super important.
And let's go. Hi everybody, it's WAPI webinars again, and me, Alexander Fridman, with you, and today with me is wonderful guest from United States of America, McClain Warren. Hi McClain.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much that accepted our invitation, and I'm looking forward to have a great webinar video with you today.
Well, I hope I can meet your expectations.
So for everybody else, McClain Warren is Colorado native communications and marketing degree from American University, DC. She started in the Amazon space as a copywriter for listing optimizations and worked her way up the corporate ladder until she was the director of the keyword research and copywriting department of one of the largest Amazon-focused marketing companies. And now she is in the marketing and content manager at Movley, a United States-based inspections company that provides clients with an entire quality control team for the price of an inspection. Wow, I made it.
You did good. I'll give you 5 stars on that one.
Thank you very much. So, McClain, can you tell us in a few words yourself? Can you present yourself, please?
Yeah, I think you about covered it, but essentially I've always been a writer at heart, even when I was a little kid. And so I started off freelance writing in my 20s, got into the Amazon space and did a lot of listing optimizations and keyword research. And then I kind of wanted to expand out. So I started my own copywriting company. And through that, Sajag, he is the founder of Movley, and he hired me on to do the marketing and content writing for his company. So now I kind of represent Movley, and I'm excited to talk about what we offer and how inspections work today.
Cool. And so your journey, how you entered the e-commerce world was very fast, or what did you do before? For how long? I always ask you this question. It's very interesting. How came to the e-commerce world?
My background, yeah. So it's funny. So I graduated with a bachelor's, like you said, in communications, and I didn't really do much with it. I kind of was in the 20s. I did do freelance writing, but I supplemented that with being a server and bartender, which, you know, was a great experience, met lots of cool people. And it kind of actually, it's funny because I think being in the restaurant industry kind of gives you a good feel on reading people and networking and stuff. So that kind of has catered to my ability to translate into the e-com space. And like you said earlier, I was randomly searching I don't know, like maybe it was Craigslist. I don't even know anymore, some kind of job inquiry thing online. And I didn't even know what I was signing up for. It was for listing optimizations, but I didn't even really know what that was. I just thought it was writing. So that was about 6 years ago. So I would say I've been in the Amazon and e-com space for about 6 years now.
Okay, wonderful. So what's the backstory behind Movley Fruition?
So it's a really interesting one. So Sajag Agrawal is the founder, as I mentioned, and he started at like 15, I believe, doing or starting up an e-com Amazon focused company that specialized in electronics. And at 15, he was within a few years was making around or projected to make around 3 million. And this company was going well, but what was happening was there were a lot of defective products going through the inspection process. And so he realized that when customers were returning items and he was getting bad reviews for it. So he finally decided that whatever inspection company he had hired was not doing their due diligence. So he ended up going to China and creating his own inspection company and doing his own inspections himself. So he did that for about 6 months, and he thought that his internal team was properly vetted and that they were professional and doing the right job. So then he goes back to the US, and it turns out that he was still getting high defect rates. And the main reason for that was because, I don't know if anyone knows this, but in China, there's a lot of issues with bribery. So the manufacturers were bribing the third-party inspections to essentially pass a lot of unquality products through. So that's when he decided that the process was broken, that this happens in a lot of the industry and specifically in China. And so he started Movley, which is a US-based inspection company that has its unique platform, unlike anything else. And, he did that because he saw a gap in the market or a pain point in the market and wanted to fix it.
Super. So everybody, we have prepared a very interesting topic for you today. Today we're going to talk about inspections. When I heard this one, I said, wow, that's interesting. That's something different. Not about what we're talking all the time, but it is very, very important. And I want to discuss this topic with McClain so that you have the knowledge and information, what to do, how to do correct, so that to get proper goods and have wonderful sales and wonderful reviews. So McClain, you have prepared the presentation for us today?
Yeah, and feel free to ask me questions as we go through the process, because I'm sure there will be a bunch. But yeah, let me share my screen and let's do the presentation. Come on, you can do it. So yeah, as you prefaced, it feels like a lot of people, especially when they go through courses and they go through the entire spectrum of selling online, or at least setting up their business in the initial stages, they really focus on more of what I call the sexy topics, which are packaging design and product research and listing optimizations, photography, building the brand, and all that's really fun and important. But what happens is a lot of people don't pay close attention to inspections because, one, it's not really necessarily a sexy thing or fun thing to really have to analyze. And two, it's overseas usually. So you don't have your finger on the pulse of what's happening. So often people just kind of take it at its surface and say, okay, well, my products made it through inspections, it must be all good. And the problem is that you don't even know that the inspections were properly done or that you have defective products until it gets into the hands of actual customers. And then it's too late to do anything because the customer has this faulty product and then they're leaving a bad review. They want returns. They want their money back. And so you've already ruined the reputation of your brand building because customers are, they're your number one inspection team, is what I always like to say. So it's really important to understand what inspections are, how the process works, and specifically, if you're an Amazon seller, why it's more important than, say, if you were in brick and mortar. Okay. So we kind of talked a little bit about me. I don't think we need to really go into that so much. And we did talk about Sajag. He's the founder. And I, again, explained the background story behind how Movley came to fruition. So again, if you're selling specifically on Amazon and Walmart, and really any e-commerce platform, the question becomes, why is quality control so important, right? So let's talk about that. I don't know if I know we talked about you having questions. I don't know if you want to ask me the questions or you just want me to run through the slides. We can do it either way.
I thought you will go through the slides. I'll find
Okay.
the moment and ask the question.
Perfect, perfect. So one of the things about brick and mortar is that when you go into a store, you buy your product. And if there's an issue with the product, especially based on the price point of it and how much, you know, you value it, you will either just disregard the product, throw it away, or you'll go back to the store and ask for a refund or ask for a replacement, right? But with brick and mortar, it's usually the transaction kind of ends there. So if there's an issue with an actual product in the store, rarely do people go out of their way to leave any kind of review for the store. So with e-commerce, online selling, when a customer is dissatisfied with something, they're very quick to leave a review. That's like the first thing they'll do. And so with that being said, it's really important that your defective rate on your products is really low, because again, if a customer online gets a faulty product, they're way more likely to leave a review as opposed to brick and mortar. And I'll get into the different levels of inspections between brick and mortar and online. But again, like if you talk about reviews, you know, like everyone spends so much time during the launching stage trying to get reviews, right? Because that helps with ranking. And the last thing you want is a bad review. So it is said that 1 to 2% of customers that are happy with your product will leave a review. 1 to 2%. That's a very, very small percentage. If someone does not like your product or finds it shoddy quality, they're 66% likely to leave a review. So you really, really want to be careful about making sure that you're providing.
People surround us, yeah.
You what?
Wonderful people surround us.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody wants to give a positive review, but
No,
everybody.
I know. It's crazy the difference between people that like their product and people that don't. But it's clear that studies show that people that aren't satisfied are way more likely to leave a review than people that are satisfied. And that's true in any business, whether you're doing products, services, etc. So another reason that you really want to focus on your online, if you're selling Amazon or Walmart, is Amazon and Walmart have very defined guidelines for what they expect, because they are looking at customer service. They just care about their customers being happy and appeased by everything, right? So they don't really care as much about, I mean, this sounds a little harsh, but their main goal is customers. They don't really care about sellers. As long as you're a seller and you're providing good quality products to their customers, that's all they care about. So they recommend an order defect rate of 1 to 2%, which is, again, a very low margin. So you really want to make sure your defect rate is low. And if you have an Amazon account and you have, and this number is based on category. So if your return rate is over 10%, they will suppress your listing. Now, again, when I say category based, if you are in electronics, it's usually around 30%. If you're in apparel, it's around 40%. And that's because with apparel, people often, you know, you have to try something on to know if it fits right, if it looks good, etc. So they give a lot more leeway for return rates with regards to that. But most categories are around 10%. So if the majority of your returns are based on defects, you really want to figure out what is going on, where are the issues, why are the products passing inspections without them actually being up to par with your standards. And so it's really important to circle back to the inspection process.
Right. So we understand that it is very important to control the quality. Very important to have positive reviews, low return rate, but how exactly to do the inspections?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
This is the question.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and again, I'm not trying to be repetitive, but again, if you're going to spend all this money building a brand, you know, making an amazing listing optimization, great sales copy, beautiful photography, And then you're only paying attention to that and not the actual product and making sure it is consistent with what you're showing online, then you've missed your mark completely. So with inspections, you have 4 options in terms of who can do inspections. You have your factories that can do it. And to reiterate, with factories, they should be doing their own inspections anyway. So from the time that they start the inspections through the process, they should be making sure quality control is correct. However, they are looking out for their best interest, right? Like they're just trying to make sure that their factory is doing well, that they can push products as fast as they can, that they've met the bare minimum of requirements so that they can just shuffle through products. And sometimes this works for people. Like I have heard stories where their factories do a great job with inspections and they don't feel the need to find a third-party team. However, it isn't recommended. A third-party team is an independent inspection team that is supposed to represent you. They are the eyes and ears for your company. They hopefully don't take bribes from the factories so that they are, again, looking out for you, and they're policing the entire process so that they're making sure that factories aren't cutting corners, right? Another option some people choose is freight forwarders. The problem with freight forwarders is that they aren't trained to do inspections. And again, their main goal is to get shipments done. They get paid based on how many pallets you send out. So they're not really inclined to say, oh, like, let's get rid of, 15% of this cargo because the products aren't done correctly, right? Like they just want to make money and get the products out there. So freight forwarders are not, in my humble opinion, the best option. Lastly, you can do it yourself like Sajak did in China and create your own inspections team. But again, it's really expensive to do that. And there's always going to be an issue with bribery, unfortunately.
In freight forwarding, you usually search for SGS at the factory place so that SGS can come and check it. That was the simplest answer for any country, any city. Just find
Exactly. So you have 2 kinds of productions or types of inspections. My apologies. You have mid-production and pre-shipment inspections. Now, a lot of factors will decide how you decide to do your inspections. We at Movley try to convince people to do both. And the reason there's a lot of reasons for that, which I'll get to, but let's explain what the 2 types of inspections are. So you have mid-production inspections, which happens as the factory is making the products. So you'll have your inspection team come in at like 20% of completion, 50%, and then at 80%. So essentially, the purpose behind that is if there's issues already happening during the inspection process, you can stop it right then and there and circle back to point A so that not all of the products go through the entire process and then are inspected. Because if you go through the whole process and then they're inspected, what happens is if you find like a lot of defaults in the products, then you have to start all over again. Whereas if you do mid-product inspections, it's a lot more cost effective in some ways. Now, if you do pre-shipment, that is just when at 80% of the completion of your product, right before everything was boxed and everything, that they will inspect your products and check for all kinds of testings to make sure that it's up to par. So I'm trying to think of, there's so many factors involved in this that I always try to like not rush through it. So it's really understandable to people. So pre-shipments inspections are always done. That's just something that's always going to happen. A lot of people choose to just pay for the pre-shipment inspection. So that inspection includes testing for functionality, for visuality, for safety purposes. You also, it's really highly recommended you do a shipping carton drop, which a lot of inspection companies overlook. Now, what that is they take the crate and they'll actually drop it just to see that things don't get broken, so that during transit, you know that by the time it gets to the US or wherever you're selling, that your products are still in place and that they're not damaged in the process. So again, if you choose mid-production and pre-shipment inspections, it is more timely and it is more costly in terms of paying for the inspections. But in the long game, it might be more cost effective for you so that, again, you're not having to redo the whole process. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. The only question in my head now is that what to do when we do the inspection, for example, pre-shipment inspection, and we see that we don't like the quality of the product. We say that, hey guys, this is not right. We don't accept it, and the factory says it's your problem. Everything is correct. The product is
Well,
right.
and that's
What
something you have to establish with your factory in advance. There should be very clear rules and documentation on who's responsible for what. Because what happens is if you aren't doing the pre-shipments like at the factory right there to actually say, hey, nothing has happened externally that will affect this product except what you guys did, then there you have evidence to show that the issue was with the manufacturer. Now, if you wait until the product is shipped to the US or, you know, wherever again you're selling, and then you find problems with your inspections, you can't really go back to the manufacturer and say, hey, you made a mistake, because they can say, well, maybe it was the freight forwarder or the shipping that caused it. Maybe it was because of the FBA or the facility that you kept it in that, you know, broke it or caused a defect. So you really want to make sure you get those defects noticed and fixed before you leave the factory, because again, you can't go back and say to the manufacturer, hey, you need to fix this.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
Still, I think it's very important to know how to sign the agreement prior to beginning of the production line, because as you said, it is when you will find the defects, you will have to explain somehow that it is factory's fault, and if it is obvious, like if it is a stretch or something in the middle, okay, but if it's something that is not very beautiful and something a little bit not nice as you wanted it to be, it can be very difficult to explain factory that they can have to produce everything from the beginning.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go further.
Let's move on to sample size.
Mm-hmm.
So most companies, and Movley included, don't recommend testing all of your products. It doesn't fiscally make sense. It is a very timely process. And there isn't any proof that testing every product is any more effective than coming up with a sample size and then testing out that sample size. So with sample sizing, a lot of people are saying, well, how do I discern, say I have 1,000 products, right? Or 1,000 products, units. Sorry, units. I don't want to say products because that sounds like it's multiple types of products. So if I have 1,000 units and I need to know what percentage of those units should be tested, there's 3 levels. And based on each level, it's going to determine how many how many samples are going to be tested from that batch. So level 1 is the most basic one, and that's going to be a lot smaller of a testing batch than if you go to level 2. Level 2, we recommend that you test. Level 2, we recommend for brick and mortar stores, because again, we circle back to the issue with reviews and people making returns on defective products. Usually level 2 is a good enough sample size to cover the basis for them. Level 3 is what we recommend for people selling online. And again, that circles back to because there is way less sympathy for defective products. And again, if they get in your customer's hands, they're way more likely to leave a bad review. You're going to have higher return rates. It's going to be more costly for you, etc. So with that being said, I don't know if I did. Okay, so I'll stop with that. And so again, there's an AQL table, which I don't remember. Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't put it into this slide, so I apologize. But with the level you want your inspection at, again, so let's say you have 1,000 units and you do level 1, maybe you're only going to test out 50 of those products, right? So you have more chances of errors with only testing 50. If you want to go to level 2, you might test out, let's say 100 or 150 of the 1,000 units. So again, you're broadening the amount of units you're testing and shortening the chances or minimizing the chance of having defects. If you go to level 3, again, that sample batch gets larger, so you're covering your bases more. And there is an AQL table out there that, based on how many units you have and how what level of inspection you have, they will tell you how many units to sample. Okay. So again, we recommend for most online Amazon and Walmart sellers to use level 3, because again, you're testing a higher batch and you're more likely to hone in on the defect rate for that entire batch. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It depends how expensive it is only.
Right. And so we always, when we talk to clients, ask them first thing, what is your risk tolerance? So there's a lot of people that, based on their product, like say you're selling socks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a whole lot of room for error, let's say. Your risk tolerance might be higher and you might not want to do mid inspections, for example, because you're like, well, it's pretty hard to mess up a sock. And we'll catch those issues during the pre-shipment or pre-shipment inspection stage. And it's not too costly to have the manufacturer redo the sock, right? So they may choose not to do mid inspections. They may choose to do a smaller like level 1 or 2 because they don't feel they need to test such a wide sample for that batch. However, if you are selling something that is expensive, that people are more likely to leave bad reviews on if they're not perfect, that are luxury items, stuff like that, we recommend having your risk tolerance be a little bit more conservative, because again, if you don't do mid production inspections, if you don't do a level 3, a level 3 sample size, then, you know, it'll get to the customer and say the defect rate is 10%. That means 10% of your customers are spend a lot of money on your product. They're expecting great quality. And then all of a sudden they're getting a shoddy product. Well, then it's more costly for you. So again, you have to weigh out, like, how much do you want to spend up front with inspections, and how much is it going to cost if there's a high defect rate? Does that make sense? So the cost becomes cost up front and then cost in the long run. So you really have to weigh out what you want to do regarding that.
Yeah. Still, I would not be glad to receive socks with a
Right. I mean, again, it depends on your budget, and again, it depends on your risk tolerance. But, you know, if I'm going to sell a product, I want to make sure that that product is perfect and that no customer is going to complain, right? You've spent all this time building your brand, building the reputation, making it a trustworthy brand, and then all of a sudden your customers are getting subpar products. That's going to ruin your reputation as a business. So again, it depends on how you like to gamble, essentially.
What more life hacks can you tell us about the inspections? What's the next in the presentation?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of flow through the things to look for, and then, you know, any questions you have for sure, ask. So
I have here the question, why is sending in a prototype to your manufacturer and inspection team so important?
right. So reference sample comparisons are very significantly more effective than just sending your manufacturer or your inspection team photos, videos, or diagrams, because there's a lot of room for error if you just send photos, for example, like color. The color red, there's a lot of variance to that color, right? There's a spectrum of reds. And even if you use an ID color grid to identify the number for the color red you want, it still doesn't mean that it's going to turn out the right color. The dye may be different shade than you want. So if the manufacturer and the inspector has a prototype of your product in hand, they can physically see what color you're looking for and compare it to the product that is being made. That's also true with texture. It's true with specific details that you may not be able to accomplish or provide in a photo or video. It's always better to have an actual product in hand. Make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So we talked a lot about how bad inspections can affect the short-term success of your company, right? But a lot of people don't understand that it can also affect the valuation of your company when you go to sell it. So right now we're in an era where there are a lot of aggregators and buyers that are picking up a lot of companies, right? So it's kind of the hot topic right now where people are looking to sell their Amazon business, for example. And they don't really understand why or how bad inspections would have any kind of effect on the valuation of your company or the value of it. So when another company is looking at purchasing your company, they look at three things. They look at the asset approach, the income approach, and the market approach. So with assets, they're looking at what kind of team you've built up. They're looking at your actual storefront online. They're looking at what your product actually is. Like, it's just the assets of your company. So if you have a storefront, for example, that you're trying to sell and it has tons of bad reviews and low stars, that's going to be a thing that a company's going to look at, and they're going to say, well, your assets aren't that great because you have all these bad markings. And that can be directly correlated with bad inspections. The income approach, or looking at your income, they're looking at your yearly net profits, right? So if your net profits are affected by people not buying your products as much anymore because it has a bad reputation, or for refunds and replacements, that's going to affect your net income, which is something that a potential buyer or aggregator is going to look at. So the marketing approach is just looking at the market in terms of your audience, how valuable your product is, how in demand it is. But in terms of the assets and the income, bad inspections will bite you in the butt if you don't pay attention to them. It will affect the valuation of your company.
Yeah, it's something that you even don't think about. Of course, you think about the quality of the goods, and your goods must be high quality if you want it so, but you're not thinking that it depends on the valuation so straight. Right. So everybody, when you create the product, you think about quality. Don't forget about inspections.
Yeah,
Don't forget about inspection, because it's very big chance that you're going to sell your company soon, and it's better that everything is controlled, the quality is controlled on time.
yeah, I like to compare it to the value of a house, right? Like, depending on the time you've put into investing in the house, making sure everything's quality, that there are no, the ceiling is, or the roof is done properly, the whatever you want to address in terms of a house. When you go to have it appraised, when you go to have it sold, when someone's looking at the value of your house and it has tons of issues with the house, it's going to lower the value of your house. So you would never do that to your house. Why would you do that to your company? This is essentially a protection plan to make sure when you go to sell your company, like when you go to sell your house, you want to make sure it's as high quality and best as it can be, so you can get the most profit.
The highest price that is possible.
Exactly.
Agreed. So, can you tell us, why is Movley platform so different than all the other inspection companies out there?
Right. So circling back to Sajag and what inspired him creating Movley. Again, he saw multiple pain points in the inspection process and multiple gaps that had to be fixed, essentially. So there's quite a few characteristics of Movley that make it significantly better than a lot of the other inspection teams or companies out there. First of all, again, one of the pain points for sellers that are not really paying attention to inspections, or they don't understand the process, or maybe there's a communication barrier. There's a lot of reasons why sellers aren't directly paying attention to their inspections, right? So we have service pods that that are made up of an account manager, three inspection specialists, and essentially a translator. So what that service pod does is, not only does it provide you a middleman to really walk you through the process. They start from the beginning of the testing process all the way to the end. So they're there with you every step of the way. For example, when you go to fill out your product intake form, when you go to figure out what kind of tests you want, they will walk you through what kind of tests are actually important for your specific product. Most companies are just going to use a trap all blanketed test for all the same products. Like, so if you're selling a cup, they're going to just have a list of tests that they suggest you do that they're going to send to anyone making a cup, regardless of if your cup differentiates in any way. Where what we do is we use aggregated data. So we look at all the people that have hired us that are making cups, for example, and we look at each individual situation, and we find out what kind of errors were made in the inspection process during with each, sorry, I'm like stumbling over my words now. So we take all that data and
we're recording the video. You can stop.
I know, I'm so used to doing like live stuff that I'm like, So let me back up. Okay. So if you have a bunch of clients, or if we have a bunch of clients that have done inspections on cups, right? Instead of using a blanketed all catch testing formula, we'll actually look at what's happened in the past with all of our clients that have sold cups, because all those cups are different somehow, or most of the time they're different. And with inspection process, we might find out that there was some kind of test not performed that customers were complaining about. So we'll say, okay, for the next inspection, we need to make sure we add that test. It might be a test no one had thought of, or a thing we never thought customers would complain about. So now we know, okay, well, this test that, no one would normally intuitively think is important, we now find is an issue. So if you come to us as a new client and you're selling cups, we'll look at all the past experiences of our past clients and use those tests to tell you how to have the inspection process done for you. So again, we use the aggregated data for all of our clients to improve the testing experience with each new client and with each inspection that we do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like, well, what for to make your own mistakes if you can find a company that already saw all these mistakes in their life. They have this experience and they can prevent something, like teach you, and you will save money. You'll you will spend money for paying them, but it's for payment for learning.
Yeah.
And for further savings.
Right. Right. And so, yeah, and that's, between the account manager who is there to answer any of your questions, to help you through the process, to hold your hand, you then have the inspection specialists that are all trained through us, by us, to really understand the inspection process. And they have years of experience. They're going to be the ones that are looking at your tests and say, hey, we should add this to the test that we're going to check on. And that will improve the testing process, and it'll make it so your defect rate is a lot lower. Again, you also have the translator. Now, right now we're only doing inspections out of China. We plan on expanding that to India, Vietnam, a few other places. But regardless of where you are doing your manufacturing, a huge issue is miscommunication between the seller and the supplier and the inspector team. So you really want someone that can translate exactly what it is that you need and what your demands are. So we also have a translation person on your service pod, which is very, very helpful. With our actual inspections on the ground, with our inspectors on the ground, we do like to rotate the people that are doing inspections every few days. And that's really just to make sure that you have multiple eyes on your product. There's not an issue of people getting lazy. There's not an issue of bribery. There's more of an accountability factor for that. So we really like to stay on our inspectors and make sure that, they're really staying on top of your product and they're really representing you and your company.
Yeah, it sounds like insurance. You pay for insurance and you feel safer.
Yes.
Especially because you're going to make a deal with a company that is from the other place in the world and other mentality, other language. And if you have a company that is representing you there and controls the quality, you just feel yourself safer. And in result, you save money and you avoid bad reviews. So everything what you tell us today sounds very, very logical.
Yeah, I mean, you can compare it again to, if you're selling on Amazon, your motto is you pay for quality, right? Like, so say your competitors on Amazon are lowering their prices, but they're really low quality products. Your motto is always going to be, well, you pay for what you get, and so that's the same with inspections. You essentially pay for what you get. And so you really need to, again, it goes back to the risk factor. Like, how much do you want to pay to ensure that your product is high quality?
Okay, wonderful. So thank you for your presentation today. You can, you have some.
Sorry, yeah, I had one more. I actually, so if anyone watching this is interested in connecting with Movley, is interested in our inspection process, if you use this QR code, it will send you to the Movley website.
I will
You
be.
can,
Okay.
Make sure it works. And if you indicate when you fill out the startup form that you heard about our company through WAPI, you'll get a $25 off of voucher for your first inspection.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your offer for our listeners and for everybody who watches WAPI webinars. Okay, so this today webinar is coming to the end. We have a little bit of time here. So I will ask you one question.
Okay.
So not three, but one. How to be successful in online business? Three takeaways from McClain World, from company Movley.
Well, I think if you're going to take it from an inspection standpoint, I think everything I addressed before is a little bit of a hack or a way to ensure success. You really need to make sure that if you've spent all this time building a business, building a product, then it really just doesn't make sense to not spend that extra time and energy and money on making sure that what you've put into it is going to resonate with how customers view and use your product. So from an inspector point of view, I would definitely say pay attention to what's happening with your product quality control. It's super important. My advice from a copywriter standpoint is to really pay attention to your voice. I say this in a lot of webinars and podcasts, and I advise all my clients of this, that no matter what you're selling, you're more than likely to have thousands of other competitors, and they're more than likely to all be portraying their product in a similar manner as you. Now, with that kind of competition and with the short attention span of most people online, you really need to find a way to stand out and build your voice and make sure it's heard. So those would be my 2 tips for people selling.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Guys, you've got the QR code. If you want help in inspections, please contact McClain and they will do their best to help you. Any questions about logistics, fulfillment in Europe, please contact us, contact WAPI. We will help you with this one. We've got 14 warehouses all over Europe, 24, 48 hours delivery to any country. We support all the available sales channels in Europe. So contact us and we will help you. And of course, stay tuned. Every Thursday, we're doing our best to bring the most valuable and important information for you to be very successful in online business and to boost your sales. Thank you, McClain, for being with me today. Thank you, everybody, and bye-bye.